You're listening to SoFloRadio.com. SoFloRadio.com presents CEOmanship, becoming a leader in today's business world, with your host, Steve Gordon, CEO of Gordon Partnership Group, an international business consulting firm specializing in CEO bootcamp, sales team training, as well as client growth and retention. Visit GordonPartnershipGroup.com. Gordon Partnership Group. Your success is our business. And now, here's your host, Steve Gordon.
Good morning, George.
Good morning, Steve.
How are you?
I'm great. I mean, on a day like today, I know that's what I said last week, but I didn't think the weather was going to be better, this Monday than it was last Monday. Look at this beautiful, enviable weather. The clouds are just like decorations, just a couple of clouds here and there to make the sky interesting on the other side of that palm tree out our window there.
You are quite the artiste.
I just, they're happy little clouds like that guy. I forget that guy's name, the guy with the fro, rest in peace, that artist that would draw the happy trees.
You know, I've been up so early, I just said good morning, but it's 2 in the afternoon.
Sure.
Something like that.
I was up early too, and riding that coffee.
You're riding that coffee, I was riding the bike, and then I went for a swim. It's cold. You know, I like to tease our northern friends when it's really warm, but it was like 60-something degrees. I wanted to get in the pool this morning.
They're like, what? They don't call that cold.
No.
We're not allowed to call that cold.
But I looked at my pool, and the pool looked at me, and I said, what do you think? And the pool said, just do it. And I said, no. It said, don't be a wuss. Get in there and swim.
So did you?
Yes.
Woo.
Yeah, it was great. Woke me right up. It's brutal at 6 in the morning. There's no sunshine. It's still dark out.
But it's beautiful. Yeah, I'm really lamenting the theft of my bicycles on a day like today. I'd certainly get some riding.
Oh, my
in.
gosh.
Yeah,
you know, I told you.
The primary ones.
I promised you a bicycle, didn't I?
Yeah, but I haven't gone up and gotten it.
You know what? We have to get together. Come.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's do that. I'll schlep up there for a bicycle, sure.
Oh, my goodness. I love when you throw in a little southern Florida.
Listen, that's one of the things, besides the weather, South Florida, boy, it's just a wonderful bouillabaisse of cultures down here.
Yes.
And we get to absorb each other's flavors.
You know, we always end up talking about something food-related, whether it's the food carts on Mondays here in Hollywood, Florida, or
wonderful analogies.
Going to a birthday party, a Cuban birthday party, and what they serve, or now a bouillabaisse of culture.
All of these things.
All of these things. We had a great show last week. We got to talk a little bit with Roy Moore, who was from Stand Strong, Florida. Roy's actually coming into the studio next week, and he'll be here live. You know, I really enjoyed the time that we spent. His mission is something so incredibly important. And, he's tied in, again, as I mentioned to you, with Nick Vujicic, who we are working with right now, his organization, so that we will have Nick on this show to talk about his program for anti-bullying and to raise awareness of teen suicide across the country, and also some of the things that he does to help prevent that. Really an amazing group of folks, both organizations, and I'm excited to have Roy in here to continue his discussion. Also, today, we want to finish where we left off. Last week, I got a little sidetracked. We went a little longer with Roy than I anticipated, but that's fine with me. We're flying by the seat of our pants, no net, so to say. And when you are live, sometimes we don't get to finish where we start. So I wanted to make sure today that we finished up where we left off last week, which was to talk a lot about what some things are that you should consider when starting your own business. Because today, we're in such a difficult economic environment where the jobs are not exactly growing on trees, so to say. And certainly the higher level jobs. So there are a lot of people who are turning to starting their own business or want to, but they don't exactly know where to begin. And so, I'm interested a little bit. We've known each other for a while, but we never really talked on the show about your situation. Now, you had worked with Neil Rogers, the #1 talk show host in all of Southern Florida, for 19 years.
Right. He was on the air here in this market for 30 years, and I was a part of the show for 19 of those years.
And I'm sure those were the 19 best years and most successful
Well,
years.
he kept growing in popularity, so he was already very popular by the time I came on, but then he continued growing in popularity after I joined the show, right up to the end. He got to retire pretty much on top. And absolutely, that was a great gig as far as radio careers go, because I got to stay in one town. I made decent money. It was a popular show, so I got a lot of free swag.
Well, but the truth be known, you didn't actually make a lot of money in the beginning. You
No.
paid your dues.
Right. It was just a. I've been fired once in my life, and that was that last time. It was a doozy, but. When you benefit from staying in one place and you get those periodic raises, and there were some big ones there occasionally as we went to other stations where there were new contracts, I would get some big raises, but certainly there were always a steady succession of periodic raises, and so yes, onward and upward, those percentages add up, and towards the end there I was making some pretty decent money. I sure missed that.
Yeah, you mean being an entrepreneur doesn't give you that steady paycheck?
Well, you know what? It gives you lots of other rewards, and the potential, of course, as you know, is infinite. So I'm very happy. I can't say that I made this decision. I'm not going to say that, because I didn't really make this decision, which brings us to the starting your own business thing.
See how we tied that together?
I love that, because here's what I recommend that the people in the audience don't do, and that is how I did it, because it was all very accidental and incidental and reactionary. I reacted to situations rather than having a plan ahead of time, and the reason for that is I thought it was going to be temporary. I thought my internet radio thing that I was doing was going to be temporary. Well, and radio, just instead of the environment, the atmosphere getting better, which is what I thought and hoped would happen,
right.
It just became worse. And that's not the only industry that's changing in our world. The world is constantly changing.
Right.
And so this is just one good example of, so I just reacted to what was going on, and then just continued reacting to what was going on up until recently, where now I'm starting to make some plans, because I realized that this is it. This is the future. This is the now, and this is what I'm going to be doing now for the rest of my life, is this internet broadcasting and expanding. I'm going to continue expanding on this.
Well, the reason I asked this is because you did answer some of the questions that I was going to ask you, but for our listening audience and our viewing audience, I think it's important, because they tune in each week. They watch or listen to a lot of shows, not just mine.
Sure.
But I'm glad they're listening to mine. But
we got a variety.
We do. You have a variety. That's true. But so you ended up working with Neil, and you were working on this show. You went from basically like a gopher, right?
Sure. In the beginning, right? Just a button pusher,
right,
or phone answerer. To co-host,
and many times substitute host.
Sure, yeah.
And then when that show, when Neil ended up retiring, and so there was obviously no place for you, because there was no show,
and no station that did that format anymore. We didn't do
Right.
sports. We didn't really. It wasn't a political show, and that's really the only English language programming anymore on AM. Is that it's one or the other.
Right, there you go. So you make this decision. You say, okay, I'm going to start my own station.
Right.
We're going to talk a little bit today about some of the things that I would recommend to somebody who's interested in starting their own business. Feel free to just, as you always do, jump in and say, wow, you wish I had known that.
Here's what George should have done.
Well, there's two kinds of people. There are the reactive and the proactive.
Sure.
If you have your choice, I would tell you don't leave your job. Try not to start a new business on somebody else's time. That's not fair to your employer.
Right.
But certainly be the best employee that you can be for the person you work for, because remember, what comes around goes around. And if you are eventually the boss one day, you'd like to believe that the people working for you are also doing a great job for you. But in the situation where maybe you're frustrated, you feel like you're stagnant, you're flat, there's no place to go, or maybe you just hit that point in your life. I always talk about the second half of my life, now that I'm 52, and I look at the second half of my life and my career, and I go, okay, what do I want to do? Where do I want to be? What impact do I want to have personally, financially, on other people? What legacy do I want to leave to my family and to people around me? I learned a tremendous amount, a little bit of segue, but I learned a lot. A few months ago when my wife, Lori, her mom passed away, I mentioned to you that there were probably 500 people at her wake and at her funeral. And I thought, wow, I've worked with so many tens and tens of thousands of people. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I wonder if 500 people would come to my funeral. Now, you're supposed to say, of course they would, Steve.
Well, I'd be one of them.
Oh, George, thank you. But really, so then it made me start to think about what kind of legacy do I want to leave? What imprint on this earth? I mean, if we only have a very small amount of time here, right? But our legacy can live on, what is it all about? This is like your typical midlife question, right? But that's why people start careers and they start new careers. They go back to school. They start businesses because they start to realize, okay, like Roy, who we had last week and we're going to have in the office next week, in the studio. Roy had a very, very successful career and, I'm sure made a lot of money and impacted a lot of people, but he felt the calling to do something different that, didn't necessarily mean trading time for dollars. It meant trading time for impact. And so I don't know where you're at, but I would say, look, if you're thinking about starting something, if you can, put a plan in place like any other plan. I mean, think about it. You go on vacation. Go, oh, wow, honey, let's go to Hawaii next month, right? So, or maybe like we'll go next spring. So now you've got 8 or 10 months or whatever it is to plan that trip. And you do. So when Lori and I were thinking about moving to Hawaii, for example, literally every night for at least a month or two, we would go on. We would go upstairs and we would put the Apple TV on, and with our iPhone or our iPad, we would start searching YouTube and start watching all these different videos. It's crazy. People's home videos, right? On all different things that they shot from Hawaii, because it gave us great perspective on what we would like. We looked at, some of the places people went and some of the things they did. We go, not for us, not those areas. Doesn't look topographically, not what we're interested in, geographically, whatever. Then we would look at some videos, and they could be terrible videos. It didn't matter, right? It's like, Aunt Sally and Uncle Bernie, are, going on their great adventure, but it didn't matter, right? So we did our homework. And we planned. And then we thought, okay, Maui is where we want to be. And then we thought, where in Maui? And so we did all this preliminary work, just for a vacation or a place that we might end up living for maybe 6 months or a year, which was our plan until we had a change of heart at the last second. But my point is, we planned, right?
Sure.
There are a lot of people who end up in the opposite situation when it comes to starting a business, which is someone like yourself. All of a sudden, the rug was pulled out from under you. You did not expect it. You walk into work one day and they go, hey, it's been great knowing you. Oh, by the way, we don't want to know you anymore.
Right.
Right? And, it's not a good feeling. And then you have the, oh my gosh, I should have planned more, should have saved more. What am I going to do? You start freaking out a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you step back. And you don't have a lot of time to make a decision. But you go, you know what? All right, I know radio. I love radio. I don't want to, in your case, I don't want to be in the terrestrial radio
I would have
arena.
Had to leave town. I mean, there are jobs in radio, but I didn't want to do the white-collar migrant labor thing that is too common in broadcasting. I have my family here. I'm not going to take them on the road.
Well, and I think for our listeners' satisfaction, so to say, you also were smart enough to recognize that what we would refer to today as terrestrial radio, for the most part, is a dying enterprise. And I'm sorry to say that to those people who still listen to radio, but
the delivery method is dying because it's archaic. The internet has made that delivery system redundant, inefficient, expensive, and therefore obsolete. It's the horse-drawn carriage versus the automobile. It just happens. It happens, and people say I love the analogy that I use is people have been complimenting my swimming, as if I invented swimming. When what happened is I was thrown off the Titanic. I didn't want to.
I like
they
that.
threw me off the Titanic, threw my deck chair on top of me, hit me in the head with my own deck chair. I've been out here treading water. Subsequently, the Titanic hit the iceberg, but I had nothing to do with that.
Good thing they threw you off. See,
I was a casualty of what was happening in broadcasting. I had what I call the last good broadcasting job. What was the industry changing was responsible for a lot of people losing their jobs, including me. I was very lucky to have hung on as long as I did in that, but certainly. So the atmosphere was responsible for that changing.
Okay, so you start this career basically, but at least you made the decision, and of course, so you were the reactive type.
Right.
But let's today speak more to the proactive person.
Yes.
Let's assume that most of our listening audience today is that of which you're either working for yourself already, or
Sure.
you're working for someone.
And I just want to back up what you said about don't quit your day job.
Right.
Because that was the first thing that you said, and that's very important. Don't let go of one paycheck until you have another.
I like to teach people, don't, and even when you start something, try to build it up to more than you're making. Because let me tell you that if you've never run your own business, there's a lot of ancillary expenses that you're not used to.
Right.
And I'm not just talking about little things like health insurance and
you'll never know until you're in there doing it what all these little hidden expenses are.
Right.
A lot of surprises in there.
There are a lot of surprises. So that's why it's important also to work with somebody like myself in the Gordon Partnership Group, or somebody who's a business consultant, because they can walk you through that line of things that will cost you and just kind of guide you to the most efficient way. But I would tell you, if I were coaching you right now, that try to get to the point where you're making at least 2 or maybe even 3 times what you're making. And people go, oh, well, that's great. If I'm making 3 times the amount of money, then I can quit my job. Well, the reality is, first of all, if you're living on your paycheck and you're making 1 or 2 or 3 times on your side business, guess what? You're putting money away. Or you're paying off your bills.
Or you're reinvesting it in your business.
Or you're putting it into your business.
It.
So you're not taking away from your family and for yourself. So you're not going into debt to try to get out of debt. I mean, the key is don't go into debt to get out of debt, right?
You also want to give it some time to make sure that what you're doing is stable and sustainable, not just...
Who's the coach now?
Well,
George,
because this is something that I learned is, because whatever your business is, your clientele might be, might fluctuate for some reason. Is it tourist-based? Is it seasonal? That kind of thing.
Here's the deal. I mean, look, we're very open and honest always on this show, and I talk about the fact that I recently had a client that, Christmas Eve, I'm up in Connecticut, and they're rubbing my shoulders going, oh, we love you. You're the greatest. You're part of our family. You're going to be here forever. And somewhere between Christmas and New Year, they realized that the terms of my contract with them changed, and it was going to increase by about 40%, which was part of the deal we made. I said, okay, I'll come on for a little bit less in the beginning if you'll negotiate this on the end.
Right.
And somewhere between Christmas Eve and New Year's Day, the phone call came, which was, we love you, but this is not working out.
Yeah.
And I go, which part? The part where I basically tripled your revenue, or hired a brand new sales team? No, I'm not being smart, Alec. But the point was, I never saw that one coming. So you need to be prepared.
Sure.
Just like they tell you to have 6 months savings in the bank, I would tell you with your business, just be prepared for the worst. And then if it's not, wow, you're really happy. And I don't mean to sound doom and gloom, but that's just
that's great, wise advice.
I thank you. So. I'm Steve Gordon, and I am the CEO of the Gordon Partnership Group, and thank you for tuning into CEOmanship today. Usually, George, you and I don't get off to such a long rant in the beginning, but
it's all right.
I love it. So last week, we started with some of the things that are important in terms of running your business, starting your business, and I'm not going to go into detail the ones we covered, but let me just review for those of you who might have missed last week's show, which, by the way, you can watch the archive on both SoFlo Radio and SoFloTelevision.com, or, of course, on CEOmanship and CEOmanship.com in our archive section, so it's there. So we talked about doing what you enjoy first, which is obviously what you did.
Yes.
You took what you enjoyed, but you amped it up. Oh, that was a good play on words, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Not planned. And we talk about taking it seriously, because I have also seen a lot of people with a lot of great ideas, and they just think, magically things are going to happen. Or, sometimes I've met people who are able to start a business, particularly like an online business, with very limited capital. But limited startup cost doesn't mean that you should treat it like a hobby.
Right.
I tell people all the time, treat it like a hobby, earn hobby money.
Okay, right.
Treat it like a business, earn business money.
That's good.
Right. I mean, I've started one particular business that's earned me millions of dollars, and I started it for probably less than you and I could go out to a decent dinner here in Southern Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah,
what a great idea. I'd love a decent dinner.
Oh, you want the bike or the dinner? Which one?
All
is
right,
it?
I'll take the bike.
You talked about, sort of doing everything by accident. And last week I talked about making sure we plan things.
Sure.
Just like I was saying, we planned our vacation, well, not the vacation, but where we're going to live.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you give yourself that time, the other thing about planning is that it gives you the ability to run scenarios and run into potential roadblocks. And so that allows you to, change course mid-course without actually being in the middle of actually running your business. Although it is important, if you find that you run into a roadblock when you're running your business, that you are able to course correct and try to do it very, very quickly. That's also the beauty of running your own small business before it gets very, very large, is that you can course correct quickly.
Right.
And hopefully by the time you get to the size of a corporation where it's a little more difficult to correct your issues, you will have kind of worked out as many of the bugs as possible.
Can't wait to have that problem.
I have a feeling you are closer than you think. We talked about managing your money wisely, which I think we just talked about a minute ago. And then the last thing we talked about last week was to ask for the sale. And you mentioned that that's kind of the challenge that you've had. I want to tell you that, honest to goodness, George, there's a few things. In my earlier years, when I was just out of college, actually, I was in between two jobs. I had a company I was working for and a great career with a very, very large publisher in Manhattan. And I'd worked my way up from a sales rep to a national sales manager. And then they sold that company, that division, and there was no place for our national sales manager because the purchasing company had their own. So I found myself out of work for the first time. And I remember a friend of mine ran a health club. And I said to him, you know what, I'll manage your club for you. He was going through some personal challenges, had to be out of town a lot, and he couldn't get good help. He told me all the time that the young kids, the teenagers he was hiring to run his front desk and open the doors in the mornings, particularly the weekends, they were young and they were out partying all night and they would oversleep. And then his clients would get upset because, they'd get there at 6 a.m. on a Saturday to work out and nobody opened the door. So I said, Dave, I'll do this for you. Don't worry about it. You go. But as part of my job duties, I was also selling memberships. And I remember thinking to myself, nobody walks into a gym and doesn't want to buy.
Right.
In other words,
right.
They might say, I'm just looking, I'm just thinking. No. It's just
I'm
like
browsing at the gym.
Right. And so if they don't buy from you, they're going to the next gym.
Sure.
And the person who asks for the sale is going to get it.
Right.
So I believe that if you ask for the sale, even if you have I hate to say this, but even if you give a terrible presentation, I want you to know that probably 50% of the time, if you just ask for the sale. And by the way, don't say things like, so what do you think?
Right.
Because you know what people will say when you say, what do you think?
I don't think it's very good.
Well, that's
think
right.
I want it.
Right. Or they'll say, I need to think about it.
Yeah.
So you just need to ask for the sale. And I'm going to tell you that people want to be sold. People want product. They want you to tell them all the compelling reasons why they need your product and what the benefits are. But at the end of the day, you can sell all the benefits you want. And then if you don't say, so George, here's how we get started. We're going to need a 10% initial investment to get this going. And then what we'll do is we'll have our people call your people. We'll set up the first meeting, blah, 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 whatever that is, right?
Sure.
If I don't tell you what that is, you're going to walk out the door and you're going to go, well, now what? Right? And you're going to feel like I didn't, do my job. Here's the other thing. We are in a society, in my opinion, that is so heavily weighted toward the side of technology.
Yes.
That we've lost that human touch. And so
Right.
it has to be about the customer. Yes, we're running our business to be profitable. We're trying to make money on our side. But a great deal is when both sides of the table feel like they got a great deal. Right? So, I always tell people, and you've heard me say this, let's say that we're talking about consulting or we're talking about a particular project. And I don't mince my words because it is what it is. And if a project's going to cost $10,000, then that's what it costs. But I always say to people, George, the total investment for this project will be $10,000.
Okay.
And, no matter, you might react or whatever. And I may say, George, whatever that total investment is, I can absolutely assure you that what you will receive in terms of benefit and, profit or whatever it is that we're talking about a particular project will far outweigh the investment that I receive. Because I need you to know that,
Sure.
I have costs that go along with my project. It's not just my time. But if it costs you 10 and you made 20, that'd be a pretty good deal, right?
Sure. I'll take it.
But if I said 10,000, you go,
No.
right?
Yeah.
Because you can't see the future. And so I need to tell you. And then I've got to deliver. In fact, I'm going to tell you over-deliver.
Okay.
Often when I tell clients that I'll give them so many training sessions or so many coaching sessions, or we'll work. I always find extra content to deliver, whether it's reading material, a book, whether it's a video that I send them, whether it's just an extra article that I publish. Maybe it's an extra coaching session because I learned something during the week that I thought was so relevant to your particular scenario that I say, George, I know we're not due to speak for another 6 days, but can we carve out 30 minutes? This one's on me, but I want. And now you're thinking, wow, I would have just paid X $100 for that half an hour session, and that was great. Well, you know what? That's the kind of stuff that bonds your clients. It makes them realize that they're not just a dollar sign. They're not just a paycheck. And I've always treated my clients that way because, yes, they do keep my business running. But if I don't deliver tremendous value, there's somebody else right behind me who does something similar. And they're either one of two things. They're going to get on technology, the client, and go, this guy isn't good.
Right.
Because it's really easy to complain online. Or they're just going to leave me in the dust and they're going to go hire somebody else, neither of which I want. So really keep your customer in mind and always under-promise and over-deliver. Got it.
I'm writing that down. Super serve.
There you go. What'd you say? Super what?
I said super serve.
Super serve. Okay. When I first started, I remember a friend of mine in one of my businesses said to me, you need to tell everybody you know that you're in this business. And I would say, well, why? He'd say, because someday everybody's going to want to be your customer. And I remember thinking, oh, please, right? But it was the kind of business where anybody could be my client. And not just now where it's a business, business owners, CEOs, sales management, et cetera. Now, back in those days, I was working with a firm where anybody could be a client. And that was great advice. And he said, be almost like a shameless self-promoter. Don't be the guy who walks into the room and immediately throws up on people about what you do. But find ways to tell people what you do in a nice way when it's relevant. In my case, I just, at some point when people were talking, I would tell them what I did. I'd give them a card and just say, maybe this is for you, maybe it's not, but maybe someday it will. And I would certainly appreciate if when that time comes in your life that you're interested in this particular service, that you would remember me and just give me an opportunity to come talk to you about it.
I also found that it's. I've come to depend on the nosiness of strangers. Within minutes of meeting someone, they're asking what I do.
Of course.
And by the way, like on the one hand, I appreciate the interest, and I think that half the time the interest is genuine. And on the other hand, I think that people are fishing around. I think that there's someone who wants to size you up to see if you can be a client of theirs. They have a service or something that they want to sell, so that's how they start their routine, is by asking, what do you do? Because that, of course, opens them up to the follow-up question, well, what do you do?
Well, that's exactly right.
And that's a great way, by the way, I learned that that's a great way to introduce what you do to someone, is by asking what they do.
Everybody wants to tell you what
everyone in business can use what you offer.
Well, and frankly, what you offer too.
Certainly. I've always said that. I have a commodity that everyone will trade for, and it's great. Very useful.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of doing it when you ask people, because if you ask somebody what they do, they want to tell you.
Sure.
And then eventually, you're right. They'll.
And all right. And now that I'm done yammering, what do you do?
Right. Exactly. So that's very important to know your 30-second commercial. And speaking of 30-second commercials, I am Steve Gordon, again, CEO of the Gordon Partnership Group. You're listening to CEOmanship on SoFloRadio.com. And when you're not listening live, if you're looking for us, we'd love for you to tap into our social media. You can find me on Facebook at Gordon Partnership, on Instagram, Gordon Partnership, on Twitter. You can find us at Follow Steve Gord. I always tell them there's not enough characters for the O-N. Just follow Steve Gord. LinkedIn. Just search for me, Steve Gordon, and Gordon Partnership. You can go to the iTunes podcast library, and there you can search for CEOmanship, and, of course, you can watch past episodes of our show. We love your comments. Please subscribe to my newsletter on CEOmanship or GordonPartnership.com. Each month, I will choose one subscriber to be a featured guest on CEOmanship Radio and TV. It's something new. And by the way, George, we got something really special coming. Can't tell you what.
No.
But those who are subscribers to the mail list are going to find out first. Again, Steve Gordon, you're listening to CEOmanship on SoFloRadio.com. SoFloRadio.com.
More CEOmanship with Steve Gordon next on SoFloRadio.com.
Hi, Sandra.
Hi.
I heard you had a new karaoke gig.
I do have a new karaoke gig. It's at a wonderful location, Sea Breeze Bar and Grill in Davie.
What kind of place is that?
It's a family-friendly restaurant, and they have 18 flat-screen TVs, a pass-through indoor-outdoor bar area, and a beautiful covered patio.
Besides your Tuesday karaoke show, what kind of events do they have there?
Wednesday is open mic and wine night.
Is that when I can go and wine?
No, it's when you can go and buy wine for 50% off. That's not just glasses, that's bottles as well. Thursdays is trivia night, 7 to 9.
What about happy hour specials?
Happy hour is Monday through Friday, 4 to 7.
I'm assuming they have really delicious foods and maybe some food specials?
They do have food specials. Actually, 11 specials for lunch that are $6.95, and that's 11 to 3. Saturday and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., they have breakfast.
I'm assuming they have a website where you can go and find out more information and hours and their calendar.
Absolutely. They have a website that includes their specials, their calendar, upcoming entertainment, everything.
You're going to tell them the website, or you want me to?
You tell the website.
I was looking it up. It's seabreezebarandgrill.com. And what I discovered, and you're leaving out the most important part, is all the beers. You know, they have 46 beers there, I noticed, from their website.
Yes.
Including 20 on draft and a lot of craft beers that are really exciting and trendy. They have Inland Monk in the trunk and Dirty Bastard in the bottle.
They do.
Among others, they have several Sweetwater. They have Funky Buddha beers. They have a lot of beers there. So for those craft beer lovers out there.
They're a full liquor bar, so whether you drink beer, wine, or liquor, they've got you covered.
They're at 4995 Southwest 148th Avenue in Davie. I'll be seeing you on Tuesday for your karaoke show. What time does that start again?
Karaoke is 6:30 to 9:30 every Tuesday.
At the Sea Breeze Bar and Grill, 4995 Southwest 148th Avenue in Davie.
By the Glass.
By the Glass is a show about beverage culture.
Brad Hubbard.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the dots on how everything works together. It's really all about how we enjoy things, how we enjoy life, and how beverages play a big part in that. I'm going to bring in people that are going to display their aspect of the culture. I'm going to bring in people that are going to show you different products. We're going to look at places where people go to consume these beverages and how they all interact. Things are built around the actual beverage itself.
By the Glass. Thursdays from 6 to 7. Only on SoFloRadio.com.
Now, back to CEOmanship with Steve Gordon on SoFloRadio.com.
Back, George.
We are.
We were talking today about things that are really important to think about when you're starting your own business. And so we've gone through a litany of ideas and thoughts, and we have so many more to go to. So I thought I would just keep rocking and rolling here.
Do it.
You know, we talked about asking for the sale. We talked about being very customer-centric. And one of the ways to become customer-centric is to try to understand and know your customers. If you have a brick-and-mortar business, try to get to know people. Names, really, really important. You ever go to a restaurant, George?
Yes, I have.
Well,
I'm sorry. Was there more after that?
There is a little more to the question.
Okay, sorry.
So have you ever gone to a restaurant, for example? I know that my mom and dad used to go to a restaurant when they lived up in New York way, way long ago. And every time they would go to this one particular restaurant, the owner would say, "Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Gordon, how are you?" And would immediately, like within minutes, walk over and bring, for example, my mother, whatever cocktail was her cocktail of choice at that time. Do you ever walk into some type of business and they know who you are the minute you walk in?
Oh, absolutely.
Makes a difference, doesn't it?
Sure.
Makes you feel important, not like you're just, again, a number or dollar sign. So try your best.
No, well, when they walk in, they go, "Oh, look, there's that guy again."
That guy is not your name.
I'm just kidding.
And if you have an internet business, for example, then it's a little harder to know who your customers are, but try to understand maybe their buying patterns, while you're still growing, so that maybe you could place a phone call or an email to somebody saying, I noticed that you have purchased, sort of be like your own, how Amazon says, well, people who bought this book love this book.
Yeah.
You could do the same thing with your customers.
I love them for being up in my head the way they are. Amazon. They just talk about knowing me, my buying pattern. Their suggestions are evil good.
Wicked
good. They're wicked good because
wicked
it's
good
like,
for
you know I want
people.
that. They know me better than, it's for my own good.
One of the things that I did, and here's a little hint, I'm just finishing up a training on how to master the art of remembering names. Because
there's an art.
There is an art.
I use the mnemonic.
Well, that's one. That is one way. I mean, we could do an entire show, and I might on that topic. There are lots of ways, but I will tell you that I have built a lot of my career in small group presentations, 2 to maybe 10 people. And one of the things that dramatically increased my ability to sell was to remember names. So that in the middle of a conversation, we'd have 4 or 5 people around the table, and I could notice, for example, out of the corner of my eye that George was kind of, maybe texting or not paying attention, or maybe he was somewhat engaged, but I wanted to re-engage him. And so as we're going around the table, I'd say, well, Mark, what do you think about that? And George, when you...
I wasn't texting.
Right. But my point is, when you can look around the room and you know everybody's name at the table, people, even if they don't say anything, they're like, wow. And there is an art to it, and it's part of a project that I'm releasing, and I'm going to be giving that training away. That is a training that I will give away to anyone who wants
Free stuff.
You know what? You have to give. And so, but try to know your customers and try to learn names. And if you don't, and please don't ever say things like, oh, I'm terrible at remembering names. Because when you say that, then it just lodges in your head. The reality is you can remember names. You can remember anything you want to. And there are some very, very simple techniques. And the better you get at it, the better you get at it, if that makes sense. You just keep getting better and better. I used to be able to do 2 or 3 or 4 names. Now I could probably walk into a room of maybe a dozen to 15 people and get them all right. If I miss one, I'm usually close, like, Jenny or Janine, but it's so close that it's like, ooh, hit the post.
I'm pretty good where I don't know if you share this, the people with the really common names like John and Robert, it's like, it's almost like I have my quota in the buffer of Johns and Roberts, or, and like, no, that can't be another John because I already got 5 in my phone. So that's my biggest stump. It's like, if your name is John, it's like, oh boy. Yeah,
well, we'll talk about it. Maybe we'll do that on the show, or better yet, for those of you who aren't subscribing, just make sure you go to CEOmanship or Gordon Partnership and subscribe to our newsletter. Just give us your name and email address. We're never going to send you anything you don't want. But more importantly, when this project is out, I will email it to everyone. And all I ask you to do is, when you use it and you have great results, just tell me.
I'll learn this from what's his name.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
At the show.
Oh my goodness, there's always comedic interplay on this show. All right, so another thing we can do is, when you're starting out, technology allows us to really level the playing field. What's amazing is you could be a solopreneur.
Did you copyright that?
No,
totally stealing that.
You could steal it because I took it from somebody.
Okay.
But you could be, a one-man, one-woman show, and at the same time, you could have the presence of a $50 million corporation because you have a beautiful website. I could throw a shameless plug for Dio, who does a lot of the work here for SoFlo Radio. He also did CEOmanship for me. He did Gordon Partnership for me. He was very reasonable.
He is.
I don't
great
want
guy.
Everybody.
Very ugly, but he's a great guy.
I've never met him face to face.
No,
that's the beauty.
Looks like Ali Oop from the comic strip.
I've not seen that one.
Look at that caveman go.
All I can say is he does great work, and I'm sorry that now that I've let the cat out of the bag, he'll probably not be available for you anymore because he's actually doing Lori's new site.
It's a running gag. I mean, I couldn't conceal the horror when he walked in the room.
So, he's doing Lori's, simply LoriGordon.com. That's another plug. But he's doing Lori's website for her because she's getting very, very busy with new clients and needs to upgrade the appearance of her site. And we had a conference call with DL last night.
Excellent.
But here's a guy, right? So he put together, Lori is a one-person show right now, and she could have a website that is so beautiful that it looks like, she's running a multi-million-dollar business, which, soon she will be. Mm-hmm. But until that time, it's hard to tell when you're just Googling.
Sure.
Right? Also, become known as an expert. So here you are. You've got this knowledge on radio, right? Well, what's one way to attract more potential clients? I would say 2 things. Number one, we were just talking before the show, and I was saying to you that I need to upgrade the amount of video blogs that I'm going to be doing.
Right.
And we were talking about that. And so one of the things that you could do, George, is that you could, on the SoFlo Radio website, you could do some blogs or video blogs. I know that you have limited time, but a video blog, the beauty is it's very quick. It's 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Somebody like yourself, you're an expert, and you could talk about things like how simple it is to run an internet radio show or be on a show or create your own show and content and benefits. And each blog could be just something that people, because everybody wants to be on the radio, everybody wants to be on TV, right? But they don't know how to begin. And so each of those videos and those blogs also raise your SEO, your search engine optimization in the search engines, and so it makes you more and more searchable as people start looking for internet radio, internet television, southeast Florida, etc. And you become an expert because you're giving this content away.
Great.
And that's important. Also, maybe going out to the right places and speaking to the right people. Even speaking at a business event, going to a networking meeting and volunteering to be a guest speaker and talk about your station and the types of shows that you run and how you got into this business and the kinds of shows that you have on the air and what people are getting from those shows. And you'd be surprised how many people will come to you afterwards and go, wow, I never really thought about it. I've always wanted to be on the radio, but I never really thought about it.
Well, that's how this actually started as a business, and it's something that I was aware of, but I really didn't feel like it was my role to fulfill other people's visions. And a lot of people out there do have really good ideas for radio shows, but radio doesn't accommodate those people. Thus, the combined efforts of someone who does know how to put on radio shows with someone with a very good show idea, because and I have my own forum, and that's enough for me.
Right, but I'm getting serious because I just turned the microphone and now I'm looking at you.
Oh boy, is that the swivel?
No, but here's the thing, right? Look at my situation. So I am at a networking meeting and I stand up and say, and oh, by the way, I'm looking for somebody maybe who has a radio show where I can partner up, or maybe a station where I could get a show. And someone stands up or calls me like a week later and says, I know somebody. Let me introduce you to George. And that's how this happened. I put it out there, but you had the forum. Now, in this particular case, somebody else stood up as your voice, right? And said, I'll introduce you. But imagine if you were to go to one or two networking breakfasts a week, different ones, and volunteer to speak. Or maybe you get on a website like meetup.com, meetup.com, meetup.com. You can join for free. And Meetup allows you to search for meetings, gatherings.
I'm in it. I'm a member.
Okay, well, I was explaining this for the audience, George.
Who? Them?
The other people listening besides you.
No, it's all about me. It ought to be.
Anyway, so Meetup allows you to search for meetings and gatherings by people who have similar interests to you. So in your case, George, I would suggest maybe you go to some of these business networking. I know that there's one every Wednesday that meets in Boca, for example, which is not that far from here. I'm sure there are meetups in Hollywood.
There is.
And it's great. So you get these business people. Everyone is promoting their business. And the thing is, they're looking to network. And you could find out who the go one or two times, right? And then maybe find out who the person is who runs that meeting and say, you know what, I would love to give a little talk on internet radio and getting your own show. Or maybe because you're part of this group, you say, can you refer me to somebody else who has a similar meetup where I could become, a guest speaker? Because the reality is that these meetups, it's great to get up and stand up and go, hi, my name's Steve Gordon. I'm the CEO of Gordon Partnership Group, and we're looking for new clients, small businesses, medium businesses that are looking to increase their bottom line and grow in their sales year to year to year, right? And so that's my 30-second commercial, and then I sit back down. Great. But imagine if somebody said to me, we would love to have a business consultant come in and talk about 3 ways you could increase your bottom line without spending any money.
Okay.
Or I'm also in the middle of putting together a video right now, another training. Boy, I'm letting all the good stuff out today.
I'm telling you.
I am actually in the process of just tying up another training that I'm going to be giving away also that talks about how to generate endless referrals without spending any money.
Wow.
Because let's face it, what's your biggest challenge as a salesperson? You're unemployed till you have your next presentation, essentially, right?
Right.
So if you don't have leads, you're out of luck. So where do you get those leads? Well, I will tell you in the video.
I had a Glengarry line, but I'll go.
Right. I know.
You steal them from the office, obviously.
Right. So something about this. I'm not going there, but I love that movie.
Oh boy.
But my point is that there are ways to do this, and so you could become an expert. So you say, look, I would love to come in and talk to you about 3 ways, and I'm not selling anything. Instead, you just stand up there and you give benefit. You just give information.
Okay.
And you become that expert. And then hopefully somebody will come up to you afterwards or get your card and say, I've got some ideas for a radio show, and do you think this would fit on your format and your station, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, speaking of which, let's talk a little bit about investing in yourself. I am almost never without a book, whether it's in hard copy format or digital format in my iPad. But one way or another, I'm always reading. And typically I'm reading several books at a time, which is not always easy to do. But I get excited about one, and somebody goes, oh, you got to read this book. And I start that one. I go, oh, gosh, I wish I hadn't started that one.
Is that an ADD thing?
Yeah.
As it is with me, I think.
Yeah, probably. Well, I'm an information junkie,
Sure.
But I also know I have also started books, and I've gone, it's not for me,
right?
And I don't try to plod through the rest of it. If I feel like I'm not getting the benefit,
you got to feel it,
right? Then I go, okay, listen, this is going to sit on the shelf, But thank you for sharing that book with me. So I also go to seminars. I go to meetings. I constantly am trying to grow as a person, because if you're not keeping up, trust me, your competitors are.
Right.
So, and frankly, I like to learn. And business is moving at like warp speed. I had this conversation with our daughter. Had a friend over last night, and she was talking about the fact that she's starting medical school in the fall, and she already knows that she wants to be a neurologist. And we had this whole conversation. Yeah, isn't that pretty amazing?
Yeah.
That we were talking about how incredible it is with technology today and 3D imaging and all this stuff. And I said, what's crazy? I said, Mary, you're going to find that by the time you graduate, a few years from now, some of the stuff you learned as a freshman, your first year in med school, probably is already like antiquated.
Right.
So if she doesn't stay up on technology, she's out too. Right?
Sure.
So things move very quickly, and you've got to continue to invest in yourself. Be accessible, but don't be over accessible. There's a fine line. Your clients need you. I was reading this morning. Ironically, I use a piece of software for some of my web content, and I love this software, and I have never ever had an issue. It's been very straightforward. They don't offer telephone support. I don't really know where this company is. I'm sure it's overseas somewhere. It's irrelevant to me because it's virtual. Mm-hmm. But everything I've asked for, they delivered. And on the very rare occasion when I've needed some support, there is an email, and usually within 24 hours I get an email back. So this morning I'm online and I'm searching for something with regard to that, how to do something with regard to that software, and I decided to go on Google and search it that way instead of using their website because I figured it'd be faster.
Sure.
And right pops up somebody who's a horrible complaint, right? And all the complaint said is, I can't get support. These people are terrible. Mm-hmm. I sent them an email. I don't get a response. And then, it was on one of these complaint forums. And anyway, 2 things. Number one, for me, I'm thinking as I read this, that's not true. In fact, so much so that I saved the webpage, and I'm going to respond to it later as a client, because I feel like I owe that company as a client an honest opportunity for someone to say, that's not true. You've been great to me. But the problem was that the client was expressing that the seller of the software was not accessible and didn't respond. All right, so you need to make yourself accessible, but at the same time, don't make yourself so accessible that everybody calls you for everything.
Okay.
I've been in several businesses where, people call me and they ask questions, and I'm thinking that answer is right on the website, or that's in the FAQs, or that's here. Or, you could call the corporation that I'm representing for that question, but it's easier to call me. So if you don't set that bar at the right point, you want people to feel like you're there to help them, but not so much that you're a babysitter and then 24 hours a day your phone's going off, text, phone, voicemail, and you're like, remember, if you're getting paid, especially, let's say, by the hour, but you're not getting paid by the hour. In other words, you're getting, let's say you're billing $100 an hour and you're saying, let's say a 10-hour project, so I'm getting $1,000, right? but they're abusing that time because they're texting and calling you beyond that, and it's not in the scope of what you charge them. It lowers your $100 an hour fee, plus it interferes with your personal life, and you need to refresh, so to say. So the other thing is build a rock-solid reputation, because reputation is all you have today, and it is so easy for even one disgruntled customer to really trash you.
Oh, yeah.
Lori,
especially now with Yelp and, TripAdvisor.
All those things.
It shows up everywhere under the Amazon products. We've mentioned
no
Amazon.
question about it. And you know what? You're not going to keep everybody happy. But when I look at reviews, I kind of do this. I look at what I call the outliers. I look at the person who is like stark raving, seething crazy about something horrible, and I go, okay, well, let's just put this one over here, unless there's a lot of them. But if there's like one or two, there's probably something unique. And I take the ones that are like 10 pluses. They're like, oh my God, this is the greatest person, the greatest sale, the greatest everything. I think, okay, this might be the competition. This might be the company itself. Let's slice the two of them off over here, and let me read the ones in the middle. Okay. And that's kind of how I look at reviews. Because if the overwhelming majority are like, on a scale of 1 to 10, 7, 8s, and 9s, that's pretty darn good, right? If they're like a lot of 1, 2s, and 3s, then that's not so good. Or if there's like 2, 3s, and 4s, I might take the one, like the really horrible 1 or 2 out, thinking, it's a competitor or whatever.
Trolls and shills. You eliminate the trolls and shills. There are people out there that are gratuitously negative. And you can pay, as a business person, you can pay someone to shill for you on the reviews. And I suspect, both of those people.
Yeah, right, which is why I say I try to trim the outliers. But people can see through that. Smart consumers can see through that. And so it's so important to try to build a rock-solid reputation. Again, under-promise, over-deliver. Tell somebody you're going to give them 10 hours and give them an 11th for free. Have a bonus training session with them at the end. Have a, is there anything I didn't cover? Are there any questions? I know that we're supposed to be done with this project, but you know what, George? I would like to set up one final call with you and your team to see if there's any stone that maybe you felt we left unturned, questions that people had. Let's just kind of make sure that we leave here feeling like we really are satisfied. What's that hour to me? Yeah, it's an hour out of my life. But you know what? If you're thrilled and you get online now and you say, Gordon Partnership came in, they did exactly what they promised, and then they came in and gave us extra, and they really worked with our sales team, and everybody feels like they really got it.
That's right.
That's worth 10 new clients.
And then we cuddled. It was awesome.
I don't think so.
No?
No.
How much for cuddling?
Cuddling is not part of the,
no,
you got to keep a separation between personal and business.
You're a popular man.
I am. It's Lori Gordon calling. But I can't pick her up on that line. So we talk about that. Again, get involved, do things to be a good negotiator.
Yeah, that's another challenge of mine.
Here's what my personal feeling is. I train people, don't lower your price, provide additional value.
Okay.
In other words, if you go in, you say, look, a radio show, advertising is blah.
Okay.
$500 a month, $250 a month, whatever. It depends on what show or how many spots or whatever. And somebody goes, well, George, I was really thinking, that's a little much. Instead of going, well, how far apart are we, and playing the negotiation game, because you never win, you could say to somebody, look, I am not in a position where I can change that number. It's not fair to my current clients. It's something we've never done, and it's company policy that we never break that number. However, I do have a new show right now that's starting and doesn't really have a lot of sponsors. And if we can agree to do the month or a 90-day plan at $500 a month, what I will do is give you spots on this new show at no additional charge. So it's like, I'm giving you X $100 at no cost, but I can't lower my fee. You don't want to make people feel like, oh, I paid this and you paid that or whatever. So never break your fee.
All right.
That's it.
I got it.
Okay.
That one's easy.
Where are we? Take a little time off. At the end of the day, it's really, really important that you don't find yourself in a position where you're just burnt out.
Yeah, that's easy to do. I was there.
Yeah, everybody gets there, especially when you're, a business owner. I mean, for example, last night I played ice hockey. I come home from hockey, and it's about 8 o'clock at night, and we have dinner, and now it's 9 o'clock at night, and I say to Lori, you know what? I've got a couple of things to still do, and she said, oh, you got to turn it off. And I said, you know what? We had some relaxation time, and we also had a very busy week last week. I need to do this, and I probably could have put it off, but in my own mind, because I'm the boss of me, it's like either do it now or do it later. It's like the dishes. Sometimes that's my job in the house. I do the dishes, right? Lori is an amazing cook, and that's how I always feel like, okay, you cook.
No, that's a fair deal.
It's a great deal. Believe me, I'll take that deal any day. Anyway, so sometimes Lori will go, it's late. They'll be here in the morning, and I go, that's the point. They don't do themselves. It's my job. Yes, I'd like to go to bed right now, but if I take 10 minutes more right now, then they'll be gone. So it's very easy to justify things when you're the owner, the boss, so to say. But you've got to also know your limits. And at a certain point, you got to go, all right, if I have to be on my A game and be productive, and I'm exhausted because I'm not sleeping, because I'm taking calls 24/7, because I'm up all night doing research, writing papers, all these things, content, planning for the show, at some point you get on there and you're just not on your A game, and then you lose business. And you get sick. And by the way, when you're sick, you can't produce.
Right. Not well, anyway.
No, not at all. Limit those hats that you wear. I don't mean the ones that say SoFlo Radio.
Hat collection up there.
I see that.
I was trying to increase the hat collection. That's a bad thing?
Well, what? Here's what I would say to you. You've heard me say over and over and over again, as you're growing, there are things that are your best and highest use. You're a great producer. You're great on the air.
Thank you.
You probably should be doing certain things, but not others.
Right.
Right?
I agree wholeheartly.
And so I always say to people, if you could hire somebody to do something for $15 an hour that could pay you $25, well, then why are you doing it?
Right.
Hello, right?
Yeah.
So limit the number of hats you wear. Of course, at the beginning you have to do that. And follow up. Follow up is critical. I want you to know that just the other day I sent out an email. And in that email, I actually created a survey. Just 10 questions. Because I'm finishing up this project, and I'm really excited about this new training course that I'm going to be doing. And I will let our audience and our subscribers know about it first. And hopefully that'll be it. And there won't be any more spots left. But all I can tell you is this. Right when I got to the end, I thought, you know what? Who better to sort of dip my toe and test the waters with than the people I know who are going to want to take this course, which are all of you listening, and the people on my email list, and the people who listen and watch the show, and iTunes and all that. And so I sent out these 10 questions, and I created it very quickly, and I got responses back within seconds. And the answers were amazing. And it led me to realize I need to change a little of the content before I release. So you've got to constantly follow up and be in touch with your clients. Anyway, George, I can't believe it.
Steve.
It's like another hour. How does this happen so fast?
It just flies by.
It does. Thank you so much, Steve Gordon on CEOmanship on SoFloRadio.com. Have a great week, everybody.
Streaming live from the beautiful city of Hollywood, Florida, USA. This is SoFloRadio.com.